I can be a mountain when you're feeling valley low. I can be a street light showing you the way home. You can hold my hand when you need to let go. I want a house with a crowded table and a place by the fire for everyone. Let us take on the world while we're young and able, and bring us back together when the day is done. If we want a garden, we're gonna have to sow the seed, plant a little happiness, let the roots run deep. If it's love that we give, then it's love that we reap. If we want a garden, we're gonna have to sow the seed. Yeah, I want a house with a crowded table and a place by the fire for everyone. Let us take on the world while we're young and able, and bring us back together when the day is done. The door is always open, your picture's on my wall. Everyone's a little broken, and everyone belongs. Yeah, everyone belongs. I want a house with a crowded table and a place by the fire for everyone. Let us take on the world while we're young and able, and bring us back together when the day is done. And bring us back together when the day is done.
All right, well, we are glad you're here today. My name is Katie, I'm the worship director here. If you're new here, we usually start with a song, so once you find your spot and get comfy, then get uncomfy. And feel free to stand or rise as you're able, and we'll sing together.
Come gather round the mystery of love in our broken history, where grace heals the fault lines in me, time and time again, welcomes me in. House for the hungry, a well for the thirsty, where all saints come together, shoulder to shoulder, a welcome for the traveler, new wine for the vineyard. In all things, God is able. Love has a bigger table. Show me who is my neighbor, the Christ hidden in the beggar. 'Cause love doesn't need a stranger, love calls them friend and welcomes them into a house for the hungry, a well for the thirsty, where all saints come together, shoulder to shoulder. empty seat waiting next to me. We gotta make some room for each other. Let my enemy be my family. Fill my cup till it's running over. There's an empty seat waiting next to me. We gotta make some room for each other. Let my enemy be my family. Fill my cup till it's running over. A house for the hungry, a well for the thirsty, where all saints come together. Shelter to shelter, a welcome for the traveler, and new wine for the vineyard. In all things, God is able. Love has a bigger table. Love has a bigger table.
Nice. Y'all sound great this morning. So glad you're with us and so glad you're singing with us. You can have a seat.
Well, good morning, y'all. That's not normal for me. That's normal for those two. My name's Jeremy. I'm the pastor here at Grove Cottage Grove. It is so good to be with you, to be back with you. I was gone last week. My wife and I had our first vacation in 4 years. Galveston, Texas, thus the y'all. I'm about as tan as I get. You should see my wife. She's very tan. A great trip, very refreshing, very warm compared to this. And we're super thankful to be able to be back with you. Last week at 10 a.m., we were sitting on the beach in Galveston watching on the phone. This is a little bit different, but this is much better. Believe me, this is much better. We're a brand new church that seeks to grow goodness. And so we hope that every interaction that you have with us, whether it's in this room, whether it is on a beach in Texas, or anywhere in between, that just interacting with us, you're experiencing a little bit of healing, wholeness, and beauty in your life as a part of that. As you came in this morning, you should have received one of these. This is our worship handout. Direct your attention to this. You're going to do this for several different things. First of all, on the inside, there is... That is my mic. I heard it, and I assumed it was
I wonder if
somebody
it's
else.
the connection or something.
Maybe.
Wanna use
Do
mine?
that for now. Yeah.
Yeah,
we can
so
always change.
can mute that one for now, Rich. We'll switch to mine. We don't want to
Thank you, Rich.
I was going to blame Jacob for that. We'll get it figured out. There's a lot more glitches going on in the background that you have no idea about, just so you know. Worship handout. I'll direct your attention to this. If you're new with us, this is all of the most important information that you're going to want to know about the church. Why we exist, what our values are, information about giving, all of that good stuff is right inside. Also on the inside is there's an insert, which we call our worship handout. It is your opportunity. If you're a regular with us, you can let us know that you're here. You can update your information. If you are new with us or newish to us, and you want to acknowledge that you're here, or to request any information that you're interested in learning more about, you can do that on the backhand side. And then at the end of the service, we have a table in the back with a couple baskets that you can drop those in when you leave the service. Then on the backhand side, we have of the whole handout, we have the 3 most important things for you to know this month. So 3 things that are going on that we really want you to be tuned in on. The first is Atlas of the Heart. This is the series that we are in the middle of. You're going to be hearing, obviously, much more about that as we get further into the service. The second one is about getting involved. As we continue to grow as a church, we want to help people get connected by finding a place where you can use your gifts and talents to be able to contribute to the church. We would love for everyone who considers this their church home to find a place that fits that. Also, logistically and practically, as we continue to grow, we need to get people more involved so we're able to welcome even more people as they come through our doors. If you follow that link, if you scan that QR code, it will bring you to a page where you're able to look at all of the positions that we kind of already have laid out. Here are the time commitments, here's the descriptions, here are some of the skills and talents that might be required for this thing. There might be things that are not on that list that you're interested in doing that might contribute to the life of the church that we don't have listed, but you're like, I can do this very specific thing, and we will create a position for you if it fits. You might have no idea what you want to do, but you know you want to get involved. That's also a place where you can request basically to set up a meeting with me to talk about your strengths and passions to be able to find a place that fits for you. And then the last thing is billions of stories, none like yours. Again, we continue to grow. We continue to connect with more and more people. And we're hearing these stories of people who, as a result of being a part of this church, are experiencing transformation in their lives for the first time or the first time in a long time. We want to acknowledge that. We want to celebrate that with you and to help you to tell those stories to other people. So if that fits you, we want to help you to be able to do that. The last thing that Katie will definitely want me to note is that we're about to go into this Christmas season. Woohoo! We can feel it in the air now. Each Sunday from the 27th on, we have a sign up out right by the coffee and donuts this morning for if you are interested in helping provide Christmas cookies for a Sunday that's coming up in Advent. You can sign up there, and then we will hunt you down. Is that how the sign up works? We will hold you accountable. Yeah. Anyway, so that's an opportunity. If one of your gifts and passions is baking, that is something that you're able to help with as well. Last thing, and then I will stop talking. Kids. We absolutely love and value kids here at the Grove, Cottage Grove, as vital and important members of our community. So we have spaces that we've built out to make sure that kids are not only told they're welcome, but made to feel that they are welcome. So on the side here, obviously, we have the kids' play area. At about another 10 minutes or so, we're going to release the kids to go to Grove Kids. This is where kids who are 4 years and older are able to go out and play and learn more about God and connect with one another and then be able to do some things that help them to learn. If this is your first time with us, we would encourage you to fill out this little, it's hard, I'm used to having two hands. This little registration slip, which is in the back of the pew in front of you. If you've been here before and you filled it out, you do not need to do that. You only need to do that if this is your first time. Then you will send that with your kids on the way out. We also have nursery, which is available for 6 months through 3 years, which is staffed and available right outside in the commons area. All right, catch my breath. It's good to be back. We now get to move into the introvert's least favorite part of the service, the connection point. As a new church, as we continue to grow, it is increasingly important for us to make sure that we are connecting with one another. And sometimes that can be a little bit awkward. And sometimes it can be a little bit forced. Well, we're going to force it a little bit and maybe make it a little less awkward by making you all do it. And what we do is we provide a discussion question so that you don't have to figure out what to talk about. So in just a moment, I'm going to have you stand up. You can find someone around you that you don't know or don't know very well. And then you're going to discuss this question provided to us by one Owen Eckeberger. Today's question is, what is your favorite video game character? I don't even know how to answer that. If you don't have a favorite character, maybe a favorite video game. If you don't know the answer to that question, you can still introduce yourself, say your name, all that good normal stuff. So go ahead, stand up, find somebody next to you, introduce yourself, answer that question. We will reconvene in just a couple minutes.
right, 30 more seconds. Finish up your conversations. That was great. Oh man, usually it takes a long time to rally everybody. Right now, kids, it's time for y'all to go to Godly Play. So we like to sing our kids out. Follow in the back. Kids follow. Including you, Owen. Just kidding. Sorry. Jesus loves the little children. All the children of the world.
Every color, shape, and type, they are precious in His sight. Jesus loves the little children of the world. Oh. Got a little country jam going on this morning. Yeehaw. Well, thanks always for singing along with us, so that's really sweet. If you are newer, I just want to give you a quick little tour of the room here. You've probably heard me talk about this a lot, but it's just a reminder. We have a prayer wall up here. If you need a place to leave what's on your heart, you can actually write it down, hang it to the wall, or if you're ever just curious to know what's going on in other people's lives, I encourage you to walk up there and read some of the prayers other people have put up there. You can light a candle if there's something on your mind that you need to kind of offload. We can pray anytime, any place, but it's nice to have a place to go and do that. So if you need that space, you can use that at any point before, during, after worship. We also have our worship wall here in the back, which changes throughout the seasons. We are currently in a series called Atlas of the Heart, where we are addressing a kind of deep spiritual, emotional need every week, something that we're wrestling with. And so what we've done for this series on our worship wall is provided like a bulletin board with sheets where you can take one, where you it's like you rip off a little phone number at the bottom of the paper or something. Well, instead of a little phone number, it says so for instance, today is where to go when you feel wronged. And you feel like somebody or something has done you wrong, and you don't know what to do with those feelings. On the little slip of paper back there, you can go rip off a resource or a recommendation of a coping mechanism or a podcast or a book or something. There's different stuff back there. You can rip off that, take it with you. And there's stuff for every week during this series, but this will only be up today and next week, and then it's going to switch to a Christmas thing, so make sure to visit there before you go today. Since today is addressing where to go when you feel wronged and thinking of conflict that we find ourselves in, that's a heavy thing, and it's really hard to know where to put those feelings. So I'm glad we're addressing that today, because a lot of times we turn our pain and our anger into something not so productive, and we end up hurting other people. So it's a responsible thing to be addressing that together, collectively and individually. I want to start by us sharing and listening to a prayer together. This is called A Prayer for Reconciliation, and then we will sing a song also that really is a good one to sing for when we've got that kind of stuff, that kind of conflict and stuff going on in our lives that keeps us up at night. It's a good song for that. So you're invited to sit and listen to the prayer as Claire reads it, and then we will rise and sing together for the song.
Where there is separation, there is pain. And where there is pain, there is story. And where there is story, there is understanding and misunderstanding, listening and not listening. May we, separated peoples, estranged strangers, unfriended families, divided communities, turn toward each other and turn toward our stories with understanding and listening, with argument and acceptance, with challenge, change, and consolation. Because if God is to be found, God will be found in the space between. Amen.
You join us in singing? In the middle of the night, when worry finds me, in the middle of a fight, when strength is gone, in the middle of a fire, when fear is closing in, you are Let's pray. God, we bring whatever we're holding to you this morning. Whatever conflict we have with a loved one, with systems and institutions, ways that they've wronged us, ways that we wrong ourselves. It's so easy to get caught up in a fight and to forget that really what we're experiencing is a lack of connection. God, can you help us reconnect wherever the separation is? Help us heal. Help us figure out how to move forward. And until we figure that out, help us find peace with the things that keep us up in the middle of the night. Thank you for seeing it through with us. Amen. You can have a seat.
Microphone number 2, we'll give it a try. So far, so good. Many of you know that I have 3 young kids at home. They're literally at home today. All 3 of them are sick. All 3 of them have been sick for an entire week. Hopefully they'll be better and able to go to school tomorrow because they're driving each other nuts. They're driving the parents nuts. Also, I just want them to be healthy. There's that. But I've got 3 young kids, and as a parent, I bet if we asked the question, even if we put it out there as a connection point question, if we said, what is the point of being a parent? Or like, what is the end goal of being a parent? We'd probably come up with a bunch of different answers. But as I've thought about it and as I've practiced, as I've just been a parent, one of the things that I've become convinced of is that one of my biggest jobs as a parent is to help to raise decent human beings. Yeah, and specifically help to raise these young people to be good, decent, older people, to be good adults. Now, one of the things that means is that I'll admit it, often because I have that perspective, I'm probably harder on my kids than I ought to be, because I expect more of them because I want them to be an adult, and so I treat them more like adults, and that doesn't always end well. That's totally on me. But also it means that I have conversations with my kids that I never had when I was a kid. And one of those conversations that's been happening a lot recently, a lot over the past week too, as all of them have been contained in the house, is about managing emotions. And a lot of times those emotions, it's like a collective of emotions, often a bunch of different emotions all at the same time. And those collectives of emotions end up simply coming out as anger. I don't know if you know this, but kids can get emotional and kids can get angry and they can lash out in sometimes unreasonable and unhelpful ways. And so when that happens, when that has been happening recently, as we've tried to bring down the temperature a bit, if we can bring it down enough to be able to have a conversation, the conversation that has often been happening over the last few months or the last week has been, I can see that you're angry. It is okay to be angry. Now what we need is for you to see yourself that you are angry. Try to notice that you are angry. Try to figure out what it is that is making you feel this way, and then to figure out what to do with it. It is okay to be angry. Now you need to notice it. You need to figure out where it's actually coming from and then figure out what to do with it. If that sounds familiar to you, if that conversation sounds familiar to you, it is the exact conversation that we have been trying to have over the last 4 weeks here at The Grove as we have been going through this series. This series is called Atlas of the Heart. We have been tracking along with the book by Brené Brown called Atlas of the Heart. And the point of the book and the point of the series is to say, we have these emotions. We have these big feelings. And rather than trying to ignore them, rather than trying to get around them, what we need to do is we need to try to be map makers that are trying to make sense of the world, make sense of our emotions. We need to notice them. We need to make meaning of them. And then we need to figure out how to navigate them well. And the way that we've been doing that over the past month in this series is we have been looking at the book of Psalms. Psalms is this book that is this collection of songs and poems, these things that were written down thousands of years ago by people who are trying to make meaning, make sense of their experiences and also of their emotions. They're full of raw emotions. And so over the last few weeks, we've talked about, and we've looked at the Psalms specifically, where we go when we are in search of connection. We talked about where we go when we are hurting. And then last week, Pastor Kelly was here and talked about where we go when it's beyond us. So then today, what we're talking about is where we go when we feel wronged. And often the place that we go when we feel wronged is anger. The Psalms are full of anger. There are tons and tons of examples of these people thousands of years ago trying to make meaning of, trying to pay attention to, make meaning of, and navigate their legitimate feelings of anger. Sometimes they're really mild, directing it towards people that they know, towards their enemies, even towards God. Sometimes they're a little bit less mild. There's this one psalm that ends with the guy saying, God, I wish you would throw my enemies' babies against the rocks. Literally, it's in there, like, not the most helpful thing, but it's an expression of anger. And often it lands somewhere between, right in the middle, between that extreme response and the mild. And that is an example of what we get in Psalm 17, which we'll be reading from today. It's going to be right here on the screen behind me. Lord, consider my just cause. Pay attention to my cry for help. Listen to the prayer I sincerely offer. Make a just decision on my behalf. Decide what is right. You have scrutinized my inner motives. You have examined me during the night. You have carefully evaluated me, but you find no sin. I am determined I will say nothing sinful. As for the actions of people, just as you have commanded, I have not followed in the footsteps of violent men. I carefully obey your commands. I do not deviate from them. I call to you because you will answer me, O God. Listen to me. Hear what I say. Accomplish awesome, faithful deeds, you who powerfully deliver those who look to you for protection from their enemies. Protect me as you would protect the pupil of your eye. Hide me in the shadow of your wings. Protect me from the wicked men who attack me, my enemies who crowd around me for the kill. They are calloused. They speak arrogantly. They attack me. Now they surround me. They intend to throw me to the ground. He's like a lion who wants to tear its prey to bits, like a young lion crouching in hidden places. Rise up, Lord. Confront him. Knock him down. Use your sword to rescue me from the wicked man. Lord, use your power to deliver me from these murderers, from the murderers of this world. They enjoy prosperity. You overwhelm them with riches they desire. They have many children and leave their wealth to their offspring. As for me, because I am innocent, I will see your face. When I awake, you will reveal yourself to me. Before we jump into the actual content of this, though, I want to take a step back and acknowledge something that actually comes before this psalm and before many psalms. It's a thing called a superscription. So if you were looking at this in a Bible app, or if you have an actual physical Bible with you, often what you'll see above this psalm or above many psalms is what's called a superscription. It's not actually in the text, it's not part of the psalm, but these were notes that were added very early on by people who were copying these texts and handing them down that provided a little bit of extra context for the people who would be reading them years later and often planning worship using these things years later. And so sometimes you'll read something that's like, for the director of music, and then it provides some context that's helpful for the person planning the music around it. Before Psalm 17, however, we get this superscription. It is maybe the most prominent, most noteworthy, most familiar one. It simply says, of David. Of David, that's it. So the person who's copying this down wants us to know, or wants us to hear, wants us to see when we're reading this, that this is of David. If you're familiar with the Bible story at all, this is the David of David and Goliath fame. This is the David of the big, most famous king of Israel fame. This is the David who was said to be after God's own heart. If you know the Bible a little bit better even, this is the same David of David and Bathsheba fame. This is the David who saw a woman bathing on a neighboring house, decided she's my property now, and took her for himself. This is the same David who then sent that woman's husband to the front lines of war so that he could be murdered. And this is the same David who spent the rest of his life trying to deal with the consequences of that for his family and his kingdom. So as we read these words, the person who's copying and pasting and handing down this psalm to us wants us to hear and see these words coming out of that David's mouth in all of his messiness. And what we read as we actually get into the psalm is we see this David guy who is calling out to God, asking for a response. He's wanting something to happen in response to these things that are going on in his life. And maybe another picture that you can imagine is a plaintiff standing before a judge, laying out all of the evidence. And again, this is how it opens. Listen to it in kind of that vein. Someone who's laying out the evidence before a judge. Lord, consider my just cause. Pay attention to my cry for help. Listen to the prayer I sincerely offer. Make a just decision on my behalf. Decide what is right. You have scrutinized my inner motives. You have examined me during the night. You have carefully evaluated me, but you find no sin. I am determined I will say nothing sinful. Listen, God. Listen, Judge. Here's all the evidence I'm going to throw out in front of you again for you to take a look at. I have been wronged, and I need you to make things right. I am a good person, and bad things are happening to me. Why? You know what's worse than that, though, God? That good things happen to bad people. All of these people who are doing bad things to me, they have all of these blessings that you are heaping on them. Why is that the case? Have any of you ever asked those questions? And so as he's laying out this evidence, as he's asking these questions of God, of this judge, he's getting angry. Because of course he's getting angry. If you have asked those questions, you have probably gotten angry as well. And yet what we find is that there's anger that's on the surface there, but there's actually other emotions that as you read through that, as you listen to it in the vein of a plaintiff standing before a judge or David calling out to God, there are other emotions that are actually hiding right underneath that anger. There's sadness. There's hurt. There's confusion. There's like a sense of abandonment. Anger's there, but it is like the cover for all of those other collective emotions, like my kids, right? Brené Brown talks about anger being a secondary or indicator emotion. It can be an indicator of other things that are going on. Here is what she says in Atlas of the Heart. The more data we collected as she was doing this study that she assembled into this book, including interviews with more than 1,500 therapists and counselors, the more certain I became that anger is a secondary or indicator emotion that can mask or make us unaware of our feelings that are out of reach in terms of language, or that are much more difficult to talk about than anger. We live in a world where it's much easier to say that I am... There's kids in the room. I'm PO'd. There we go. Then I feel, it's easier to say that I feel so betrayed and hurt. It's easier to say I'm angry with myself then I'm disappointed with how I showed up. So there's anger, and then there's all of these other things that are hiding underneath it. Hurt and sadness and disappointment and confusion and fear and rejection. Now, what that means is that anger is okay. Anger is okay for David, who's saying all these things. Anger is okay for us. But what it means is that we need to pay specific and even more attention and noticing the feeling of anger and all of those things underneath so that we can figure out how to navigate the complexity and the collection of all of those emotions. Because if not, they can spiral out of control. They can devolve in a way that becomes really unhealthy and really unhelpful. Can you go to that next slide with the quote on it? This is another one from the book. What I found is that yes, we have all the right and need to feel and own our anger. It's an important human experience, and it's critical to recognize that maintaining any level of rage, anger, or contempt, that favorite concoction of a little anger and a little disgust over a long period of time is not sustainable. Anger is a catalyst. Holding on to it will make us exhausted and sick. Internalizing anger will take away our joy and spirit. Externalizing anger will make us less effective in our attempts to change and forge connection. It's an emotion that we need to transform into something life-giving. Courage, love, change, compassion, and justice. So anger is not bad. Anger in many ways is good, and what we do with it is important to pay a specific and appropriate attention to, because it can quickly devolve, spin out of control into all of these other things, into contempt, into humanization, even into hate, which can lead to all sorts of really negative, not healthy outcomes. And instead, what she suggests, what I think that the psalmist starts to move towards, is instead a transformation, where that anger is noticed and it starts to be navigated towards something that looks more like courage, love, change, compassion, and justice. I open by saying that one of the most important things that we can do as parents is to help our kids to become good adults. Sometimes that means treating kids a little bit more like adults, like they can handle it. I also am becoming increasingly convinced, have been over the last few years, that sometimes we need to treat adults more like we treat kids. Let me explain that a little bit. When a kid has big feelings, when a kid gets angry, when a kid lashes out in those big feelings or that anger, we can acknowledge that those aren't the best ways of responding, but we also often have a certain grace with them. In acknowledging that there's this anger, there's this response to this anger, but usually there's something going on underneath that is informing that anger and that response. Sometimes kids get cranky when they're hungry. Sometimes kids get cranky when they're tired. Sometimes something happens at school that they don't have at the front of their mind, it's at the back of their mind, and by the time they get home and they lash out at their parents, that thing is still informing their big feelings that they're having, whether they're aware of it or not. We know this as grown-ups, and we know to extend grace, that we can acknowledge that that action is not okay, it's not acceptable, but it's understandable. And if it's not acceptable, but it's understandable, then we're able to move forward and help them to navigate it, right? How might our lives be different if we treated ourselves and other adults like that? That we acknowledge that sometimes we have these big feelings and we have these reactions that are not always okay, but they're understandable. You know who was really good at this was Jesus. there's also, like in the Psalms, there's plenty of examples of Jesus getting angry and Jesus even acting out in his anger. I mean, we have these stories. I covered one a month ago, 6 weeks ago, where Jesus calls one of his best friends Satan. There's this other story where he goes into the temple and he sees people taking advantage of other people, and he doesn't just go in and start flipping tables. One of the versions of the story is he takes the time to braid a whip and chase them out because he's angry. Like, Jesus himself gets angry. Jesus himself acts out in that anger, and yet he never reaches the point where it devolves into contempt, dehumanization, and hatred, but instead he's finding these opportunities, even in the acting out in his anger, where it's transforming towards courage, love, change, compassion, and justice. This is not okay, and it's understandable. How can I help to navigate those big feelings, even and especially the anger? How would our lives and our world be different if we treated ourselves and other adults that way? Just imagine. So that is my prayer for us, that even and especially in our anger, these are angry times, folks. Even and especially in our anger, may we acknowledge it. May we be able to acknowledge it in ourselves and in others. May we work together to make meaning of it, offering all sorts of grace, and may we then take the next step of being able to figure out how to navigate it as individuals and together. May that be so.
Well, as worship director, a lot of times I'm choosing songs that already exist by other songwriters and artists in the Christian or non-Christian world that serve the purpose of what we're doing here. And also sometimes we share with you original songs. Jacob and I are songwriters and artists as well, and we're not trying to use this as like a platform for anybody to get our music heard or whatever, but more of like, when it's appropriate, we've written some songs for some purposes, and we would love to share them. And we wrote this song that we're going to sing with y'all today back in 2016. I don't know if anybody recalls any sort of conflict or social situation that caused every single person in this country frustration in 2016. Any elections maybe that you could recall that made us all mad at each other or mad at the system or mad at our country or whatever. Anyways, we were all dealing with some big emotions then, and I don't know a single person that wasn't mad at somebody. We were mad at our families, we were mad at the government, we were mad at the culture. It was a frustrating time. And admittedly, I was regrettably a Facebook keyboard warrior, along with the best or worst of them, and that was a lot of the ways that I engaged with other people negatively during that time. But I got to this point where I was like, oh my gosh, everybody hates each other right now. Like, we've got to interrupt this somehow. And I think I saw it on somebody's yard sign or something, "Hate has no home here." And I was like, that's a song. We need a song like this to remind us, to be sort of a rallying cry that hate cannot live within us. Like, it's so easy for our anger to shift from anger, even righteous anger, to shift and cross over that line into actually hating and mistreating other people and causing more harm and more disconnection with other people. And that's the thing we've got to keep in check. And like, I forget what the quote was in the Brené Brown book, but like, rather than letting our pain be transferred and causing pain to somebody else, we can harness the anger and turn it into compassion and justice work and fighting for reconnection. So anyways, we wrote this song as our sort of rallying cry of our own individual and collective acknowledgement and mission to not let hate have a home within our bodies and within our minds and hearts, but instead to be harnessing all of that pain and all of that frustration into justice work and into healing work. So we wanted to share that song today. And you're invited to sing along. Even if you don't know it, the choruses and the bridge are like a call and response thing, so you'll pick it up. But it's a fun song, so y'all get up and we'll move a little bit. Well, all you people working for peace, are you tired? Are you weary? Do you need relief? Well, do not faint. Do what you should. Stand up, take heart. Let's fight for good. Hey, yeah. Well, I've been tired, been losing hope, and feeling helpless. Don't know how to cope, but I must not give up. No, I won't quit. Love is the answer, so I work for it. I won't die, knowing I could have done more. So I open my heart, open my mind, open doors. Follow me, because hate has no home. 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 No home here. Yeah. So let's stand together. Let freedom come. We may be different, but united, strong as one. Let's break the cycles that lead to hate. We'll lift our voices, stand for justice, change our fate. We won't go, we won't slow to fight the good fight. Yeah. We'll do everything we know to do what's right. Because hate has no home. 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 No home here. All right. So here's another call and response part. Repeat after me. We will unlock salvation. Unlock salvation. Break down these walls.
Break down these walls.
Divine liberation.
Divine liberation.
Available to all.
Available to all.
We will unlock salvation.
Unlock salvation.
Break down these walls.
Break down these walls.
Divine liberation. Divine
Liberation.
Available to all.
Available to all.
We won't go. We won't slow to fight the good fight. Yeah. We'll do everything we know to do what's right. Oh, because hate has no home. 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 No home here. Hate has no home. No home
I have to get up and follow that? Goodness gracious. Oh my goodness. It's so good to be back in the room doing this with you. Couple things really quickly before we take off. The one main thing, hey, Christmas is coming, folks. Woohoo! Come on, be excited. Christmas is coming. And you know what? The last couple years have been really down with Christmas, really melancholy with Christmas. 2 years ago, we had Katie and Jacob record, what was the song? It was the James Taylor version.
Is it the Christmas song?
Next year,
I'll
all our
think of it when
troubles
it's
will be
done.
out of sight. And it was like, next year will be better. And then last year hit, and last year Omicron came and it was pretty down. And so we tried to keep the Christmas down a little bit. We're doing none of that melancholy garbage this year. None of that. So do you have the picture with the snowman? We've got blessings this year. God's showing up in unexpected ways. This Christmas is going to be all up, all like this. We're going to try to recreate this as much as possible because we're excited about Christmas and all of the ways that God is showing up in unexpected ways. And one of the things that we're going to be doing is asking some of you to share how you have experienced God showing up in unexpected ways. We're not going to do it today. We're not going to like jump out of the bushes and interview you. But if you are interested in sharing like a 30-second clip, 30-second or less clip of a time when God has showed up in an unexpected way, we're then going to share that within worship. Don't light yourself on fire, buddy. Again, we're not going to do that today. We will come back to you. You'll be hearing a lot more about that as Christmas gets closer. The other thing with Christmas is we want to let you know about Christmas plans. Christmas Eve is on Saturday, and we are going to have a 5:30 service right here, 5:30 p.m. Then the following day, Christmas Day is on Sunday, 10 a.m. as normal. It's going to be a little bit different than normal, though, because we're encouraging people to just roll out of bed and show up. Come in your pajamas. Yeah. We will have pastries of some sort, and we're going to have a great time together. Like, finish unwrapping the presents and leave all of the wrapping paper all over the floor. Don't worry about getting together in your Christmas best. Just show up as you are, and we're going to have a great time on Christmas morning. So 5:30 on Christmas Eve, 10 a.m. Christmas Day. All right. With that, you're already standing, so I'll have you extend your hands to receive the blessing. As we go out from this place, may we show Jesus-like grace and restraint and love as he shows towards ourselves and others. And may we transform our anger into something life-giving like courage, love, change, compassion, and justice. May that be so.